Today we're going to examine what it takes to put together a compilation album. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the various albums within the Disco Discharge series. We're going to be speaking to the renowned MrPinks, aka David Akerman from Demon Music, and also we're delighted to be joined by the fantastic, was it, or fabulous, but fabulous Alan Jones, author of Saturday Night Forever, the definitive book on disco. And disco's very much what this little introductory film is going to be all about. We're covering sort of all areas of it. There's 8 albums in the Disco Discharge series, and we're going to try and find a little bit more out about the process. My name's Ian Dewhurst. Some of you might know me through the Mastercut series. This particular instance, I think it'd be a bit more exciting to talk to the gentlemen that are behind Disco Discharge. So we'll field some questions and see how we get on. Okay, once again, this is David Akerman, aka MrPinks, the guy who actually conceived and compiled the series.
That's right,
I believe, and the fabulous Alan Jones, author of Saturday Night Forever and authority on all things disco. What was the inspiration for the series? I mean, what was the initial thing that started making you think that there should be something like this out there?
Well, I kind of thought there was a hole in the market where disco compilations were concerned. There's the best disco album in the world ever kind of thing, which the majors put out, with 47-inch tracks on, which just gets released ad nauseum over the years.
Which you see in every supermarket.
Exactly, yeah, there's nothing wrong with them because they serve a purpose.
Sure.
But it wasn't what I wanted to do. The other side of it is the kind of chin stroking, very cool, very obscure kind of soul American US disco bass comps which come out, which again are great. But I really wanted to kind of encompass everything about disco. And really show what people were kind of enjoying playing and dancing to, in the all the way through the 70s and the early 80s.
And was this born from personal experience of trawling these clubs?
Not well. I'm actually a little bit young to have been out in the 70s. My partner Steve, he was there and he enjoyed himself. I know that, but I was in the clubs from about 83 onwards, so unfortunately I missed a lot of this. I kind of saw the Euro, the high energy, the soul and funk side of it, but the disco side of it, I would have been early teens in the late 70s, so I was kind of only really buying 7-inch singles then.
So did you have to backtrack in effect and
big time?
Yeah,
definitely. But that's, there's so many people who were in the clubs in those days. What I really kind of aimed for initially was I was kind of thinking of people of my age and upwards. People who would have been there at the time, and people who wanted to remember those great days they had in clubs, and these compilations hopefully would give them a reminder of that.
Whilst we're talking about that particular era, might as well bounce it over to Alan, really. You would have been around in that era.
Thank you very much. Yes, I am that old, I'm afraid. I've told everybody this, but I mean, my move to London in 1969 literally was the time that really disco started. So I was there from the very beginning, and all these horrible little divey holes in the wall, that we used to call clubs back in those days. I mean, I don't even remember it being called discotheque until about early 70s, really. But no, so these were all very small supper clubs, and you danced around a table on a postage stamp size dance floor until the main sort of arena places took off. But hey, we all have to start somewhere.
Were these places like the Sombrero?
Oh, there you go, the Sombrero. Yes, what we used to call that? Yours and mine. We always used to call that. It was very much a rent boy hangout. Gay for pay at that time. That place was, but I loved it because it had one of the very few places that had actually a round disco floor. It didn't revolve, that came later, but I mean it was a round floor. You had to go down this basement. Actually, it's Tesco's now in Kensington High Street, but the Sombrero is where a lot of people really had a great time.
Yeah, because I was up north in those days, and we were very aware that there were certain clubs, generally in most of the major towns, there'd be clubs that you heard about. For instance, around my way there was Barcelona at Leeds, the Amsterdam bar in Huddersfield, and on those occasions when we used to drop by to see what was going on, we'd be very aware that musically it was very different from what was happening in the mainstream clubs. And I think to a large degree that's what these albums reflect, really. And so, did you have fun doing the sleeve notes?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to be involved with this series was because it wasn't the same old stuff.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, Dave had me as soon as, on the very first four that we brought out, as soon as Harlow and Takeoff was on there, which is one of my favourite tracks, and I've been trying to get that for years on CD. Because if you're like me, I've still got all the vinyl, but you do want to sort of have it on new formats.
Of course.
And you want it on CD, it's for easy access. And it was one I always wanted. And when I had a look at all the other track lists, I thought, hang on a minute, there's some thought gone into this. It's not the usual Ring My Bell, I Will Survive,
exactly.
which we're all sick to death of. And I mean, but as you say, there's a place for that. And I'm glad that people still can come in on that top end of the mainstream disco. But this is for collectors, for the people who are there, who are suddenly going to go, I remember that.
Yeah.
God, I haven't heard that for years. And that's what I really love about this series.
Yeah, it's really inspiring. We should explain that the first four albums came out last September.
Yeah, autumn last year.
It was actually wonderful to see these areas getting such critical acclaim.
Yeah.
But essentially, they've never stopped selling. What's really happening is that the various world territories are catching on to them. People are reading about them on the internet and everything. And I really do think that you're ploughing a field that hasn't been properly done before, if you excuse the expression. That leads me to my next question, really. What process did you go through when you were trying to decide what the first four albums were going to be?
It wasn't particularly scientific,
No.
but it was, in the end, what I wanted, as closely as possible, was albums that people could put on without having to skip through every other track.
Natural compilers. I guess the holy grail for any compiler is to get all the tracks he wants, get them sequenced perfectly, and theoretically the consumer should start at track one and finish at the final track and have a seamless listening experience.
I mean, I'd love to think that was the case, and hopefully it is.
And so the first four genres that you covered, can you remind us?
Yeah, we had classic disco, which is what it says on the tin. It's from all over the world. There's European stuff up on, there's American stuff, there's slower, funkier stuff, there's very fast, like Harlow. Oh no, Harlow's not on that one. But there's Cerrone, Don Ray, much faster, pumpier, Euro stuff. It seemed to be the best place to start with a kind of all-encompassing compilation.
Yeah.
And then we moved on to Disco Ladies, which compilation-wise, and I know from Alan's sleeve notes wise, was the most difficult one to do.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Disco Ladies appear on all of the compilations. It was difficult to kind of pin down which ones we wanted to use for that. And also, obviously, in licensing, there are certain labels we can't license from because of deals that are in place and that. So that people will notice, and people have commented, well, where's Donna Summer? Things like that. The reason Donna Summer's not on there is because we couldn't do a deal with the label.
And also, who wants Donna Summer again? I mean, most disco fans have got Donna Summer until they're like,
Absolutely, but I must admit, I really did wanted to put Walk Away on it.
All right.
Because it's a lesser known Donna Summer track.
All the Deep would have been a good one to have.
great.
Yeah,
absolutely.
is that on CD?
Yeah,
It is. It's on the Live and More album.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
But Disco Ladies proved to be very difficult, but we did get some absolute peaches out on that one because we got Gloria Jones, of Tainted Love fame, her ode to Mark Bolan, Bring on the Love, Why Can't We Be Friends Again? So, it worked, and it worked well. It's been one of the best sellers.